There's a pretty good article out in the Daily Beast written by Robert Silverman that is probably the most thorough takedown I've ever seen of Tim Pool. So now some of you might be like, who's Tim Pool? Tim Pool is actually a massive YouTuber who has a massive channel, actually several channels. And what he does is he has a pretty particular grift. He's pretending to be a centrist, an enlightened centrist, a disaffected liberal, while spouting alt-right talking points for what is essentially clicks and engagement. And so that's the overarching theme that you're going to see here is everything that Tim Pool does is for Tim Pool and to prop up Tim Pool. And so let's start with some parts of this story that I want to read here. Here's what Silverman writes about Pool. For a former digital media journalist who originally built up his name with the on-ground reporting and live streaming, including stints at Vice and Fusion, Tim Pool now postures as a rational centrist, or a disaffected liberal, who grew to loathe the excesses of the left. If you buy Pool's branding, he stands in contrast to the bulk of his journalistic peers, evil liars, he says, who supposedly capitulated to the agendas of Black Lives Matter, Antifa, Democrats, big tech companies, feminists, and the like. Oh, yes, he sounds such a centrist, so much like a centrist. Oh, yes, absolutely. This self-generated mythology, Silverman points out, an anti-authoritarian truth teller whose successes stem from confronting the machine, as Pool puts it, bear little semblance to reality. Contrary to the overall manner in which Pool portrays himself, he was not an intrepid field reporter and streamer who barreled into conflict zones filled with an unshakable desire to ferret out the real story. Pool was at times reluctant to leave the safety of the hotel room, according to several of the nearly 30 former co-workers and other acquaintances from the past decade who spoke with the Daily Beast. He'd come across as uninterested in interviewing subjects or doing much research. During shoots, Pool's head was frequently buried in his phone, diligently tracking social media, only to blame coworkers or equipment when he couldn't live up to his clippings. Pool's main focus when reporting, those on the ground with him said, was simply drawing attention to himself. So this is already great. I love this story, again, for a couple of different reasons. For one, it's always just fun to dunk on Tim Pool. Because this guy's, look, he's the epitome of know-nothing journalism, right? That's not a thing. I just made that up. But it's where you come out there and you basically know absolutely nothing. You don't do your research. And you just go rant at a camera. Yeah, okay, that might be somewhat entertaining, but it actually is incredibly harmful. But there's more. Get a load of some of the things that his former coworkers had said about him. Quote, a coward and a phony, a joke, staggeringly arrogant, totally full of shit, not smart, and a bumbling doofus. Oh, I love this. That's what his former coworkers said about him. Most did so in the condition of anonymity, because given how this guy has a massive, massive right-wing audience, well, they feared reprisals by Pool and harassment from his fan. Again, the guy has about 3.3 million subscribers. That is a lot. 1.5 billion views, and by all estimates, hundreds of thousands of dollars in revenue per month. In fact, for the month of August 2020, he earned $600,000. That's why he could afford his own skate park and compound in his gated community. Oh, I couldn't imagine making that much money. Oh my God, I don't know what I would do with it. I mean, I wouldn't do a skate park. Honestly, that's a ton of money, which means he's doing something incredibly well. So he's bringing in the cash, and again, I don't have a problem with, I don't have a problem with people having money or making money. I have a problem in how you do it. Like if you're crushing your workers, if you're doing so dishonestly, you're making your money off lies and bullshit, yeah, then I'm going to have a problem with that. Okay. But, you know, he does make money, and he makes a lot of it, and he does incredibly well at it. Whatever Tim Pool is, that is one fact. He's really good at boosting himself and his own brand and getting a lot of views. And apparently that seemed to be his only focus. As Silverman writes, Pool has discovered, and this goes back to the know-nothing journalism, a style of commentary and audience where a lack of knowledge or journalistic skills might not prove an impediment to success. In some ways, incuriosity and incapacity serve as valuable attributes in this medium. Meaning that basically the less you know, I guess the more successful you can be, the less time you put into research. It makes no sense. But he adds, not solely because of the political valence, but thanks in part to how YouTube itself functions, rewarding the kind of high volume, sensationalized, and sloppy churn Pool specializes in. See, this is what I hate about social media. This is what I hate about being on social media. And look, that's what YouTube is. Unfortunately, it is a version of social media. And, you know, YouTube and Twitch and all that stuff. So what I hate about it, it turns out that knowing what you're talking about it's not a popular thing. It's kind of boring, actually. Being calm, being rational, you know, explaining how politics actually functions or how the political system actually functions, how it works and how you can make, you know, or affect real change. Boring. I mean, you know, doing a normal segment, I might as well put people to sleep. I mean, honestly, that's what it is. I mean, people who do that, who actually try to explain how you can really affect change and how things actually work, well, that's, again, we're boring. To be successful, you have to be entertaining, and you have to be not informative, just entertaining. Information, no, it doesn't matter. The algorithm says, fuck your facts. Give me your hottest take and make it even hotter. Put some more heat on that. In fact, according to Pool, YouTube actually promotes his work to the front page. Work. I call it work, right? With you know, quotation marks, because there really isn't. If you're not doing any research and you're not vetting and you're not even pushing back when you have an insane cadre of super right-wing guests, then yeah, you're not doing anything. You're not doing your job. Unless, of course, you don't see telling the truth as your job, being a journalist as your job. You just see, well, did I get engagement? How much engagement did I get? How much revenue did I get? How many views did I get? And that's it. That's all they care about. But he said, here's what he said in a live stream back in December of 2020. Quote, I know for a fact the YouTube algorithm drives the majority of my content. I wish it drove my content more. I'm losing subs. I have a steady, like, I'll get a bump, and then I'll go back to just slowly, you know, dripping subs as people do. I pretty much plateaued on this platform. I'm not going to get any bigger on YouTube. 162,000 is pretty much where I'm going to end up staying. And a lot of it is because YouTube just does not prioritize my, you know, it doesn't even consider my content worthy of being pushed through the algorithm. And that's a sad fact. Whereas, you know, people like Tim Pool constantly get pushed by the algorithm, promoted. And it would be one thing to say, like, okay, look, on the merits, okay, maybe my channel isn't great or whatever, or I'm not entertaining, whatever, based on the merit. And that's why some people have more subscribers. I don't begrudge anybody that, right? If you're a better person, if you're a better journalist, if you're better at doing this than I am, and there's a lot of people that are excellent at what they do, much, much better than I am. I don't begrudge that at all. I think that's great. You deserve to get those views. You deserve to get that revenue. You deserve that. But the problem with YouTube is that it's all artificial. It is all controlled by algorithms. It is all controlled by people at the top pushing buttons, elevating some content over others. And it's not And so it's not an even playing field. It's not a fair playing field. It's not based on merit. It's completely arbitrary. And that's the problem here. And that's the big problem. And, Tim Pool, again, it's a show, it's a performance. And he's boosted because I think, personally, I don't think YouTube likes progressives. I think they prefer the right wing, mainly because of economic issues. YouTube is a corporation, and a lot of us progressives say tax corporations, break up Google. That's not really savvy towards their interests. And so, of course, they deprioritize that kind of content, that kind of content, and in favor of so-called rational centrists. But if anything, he's not a rational centrist. He has been calling for, or I should say he's been calling everything, we're one step closer to the Civil War. By the way, that gets me to January 6th. January 6th. Here's what Silverman writes. Throughout the fall of 2020, the wildly successful YouTube pundit has spent countless hours hyping the blinkered legal strategies and half-baked fantasies about voter fraud that has animated the online right. And so here's how it kind of works on that. So you have, a couple of outlier channels. You've got like Gateway Pundit, you've got Project Veritas, and some of these things. And all of that, the way the right-wing media ecosphere works is that, of course, you've got a couple of shady billionaires that fund a majority of these channels. And then what happens is that talking points that appear, it could be on 4chan, right? Or Are the Donald on Reddit. And that will filter up through the different hosts and end up on Fox News. And so this is how it works. And of course, you also have, as I mentioned, the cadre of different hosts on the right wing that would come in being hosted by Tim Pool to his 3.3 million plus audience that will come in and get all of this exposure, and they'll cross-pollinate and they'll talk to each other and they'll promote each other. And that's how it works. We don't have that on the left. We don't have the money here. We don't have big daddy billionaires generally, and we don't have any sort of cohesion when it comes to left-wing news. We're all basically fighting for the scraps from people who don't have a lot to give. Honestly, it's amazing why anybody would think that there's any sort of money in doing progressive politics. Trust me, I've been waiting for my Soros check for years. And it's still, I'm beginning to think that it ain't going to come. Okay. But as far as Pool is concerned, I mean, yes, he doesn't have Big Daddy Billionaire, but he has built it off being right wing and catering to those same kinds of people. In fact, here, to go back to what we were talking about, in each video, Pool tries to separate himself from hardcore conspiracy theorists, of course, to stay on the good side of YouTube, by saying, I'm just commenting on the news. But his commentary often goes, again, to, this is an example of the Civil War. It's going to, anytime now, there's going to be a race war, all this crazy stuff. So now, Silverman also writes, what Pool kept secret from his younger, overwhelmingly male, decidedly right-leaning audience during this time is that he seemed to have a pretty good idea what might happen on January 6th. He said, quote, dude, I've had messages from people saying that they've already got plans to rush to DC as soon as November 3rd goes chaotic, Pool said in early September during a recorded conversation. A few minutes later, Pool added the right-wing militias, the Oath Keepers, the Three Percenters, and just the Proud Boys and Trump supporters. They are going to rush full speed into DC. They're going to take the White House and do whatever they can in paramilitary. The following month, Pool used his YouTube platform to say that Oath Keepers had been unjustly smeared by the Southern Poverty Law Center. He habitually comes to the defense of the Proud Boys as well, Silverman wrote. Which is odd because on November 4th, Tim Pool publicly derided and dismissed reports that the far right was actually going to the Capitol. Quote, what do you think they're going to do? Asked Pool. It's so stupid. Well, we knew what they were going to do. They were planning on an attack. They were talking about it for quite some time. to storm the Capitol, and then they did it. We weren't surprised, but it's apparently everybody was surprised, except for Tim Pool, who knew it was going to happen, but still, well, obviously had to lie to his audience. Oh, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm an enlightened centrist. But understand he knew because it's the audience that he cultivated. In fact, Silverman writes, despite his continued insistence on being viewed as a center-left truth teller, a Daily Beast review of hundreds of hours worth of Pool's commentaries revealed a consistent, if broad, eschatology. No matter which ginned-up atrocity is roiling the online right in a given day, Pool routinely will deem it a crucial sign pointing towards a civilization-ending crisis or imminent civil war. Sometimes he'll declare that a civil war is already underway, and who is to blame? Of course, a vaguely defined yet omnipresent and menacing left-wing other. Let me tell you what, I wish the left wing was half as powerful as these right-wingers say that it is. Honestly. Oh, it's the far left. Oh, really? Where's the far left? We're not in any positions of power. We got like 5 members of Congress. Who's this far left you keep talking about? Honestly. No, we don't have that kind of power. But it sets up the boogeyman for people to be scared of. And that's what conservatives, that's what really sells to conservatives. Disgust. So that's why social issues do really well. Anti-trans stuff, anti-gay stuff, because they can gin up this, feeling of disgust for their audience and fear. In fact, let's see. Here's what he writes. Pool depicts people in groups on the left as potential bomb-tossing radicals or authoritarian lunatics. Cultural shifts or gestures towards social and racial justice will lead to chaos and gulags stocked with the victims of morality policing, just like the McCloskeys, according to Pool. And says that if the police are now siding with terrorists in BLM and Antifa, perhaps the time has come to flee the cities and stock up on firearms, as Pool himself has done. And again, an example of his rhetoric is where he said, quote, "They will never stop coming. They will take your job. They will come for your parents. You will do something wrong. They'll fire your mom. They will come to your house with fireworks and guns." Understand that that's exactly what riles up conservatives. Now, Lori Penny, quoted in this piece as well, who's a reporter and writer that covers people like Tim Pool and actually worked with Tim Pool, said this. "It's a trajectory I've seen before, almost always with young and youngish men who are so laser focused on making their own careers that they arrive at racism and misogyny almost by accident, because that's what gets the most clicks." And so I go back and immediately think not just of Tim Pool, but also of Dave Rubin, for example. Dave Rubin, had his eye on money, right? That's all he wanted to do. He wanted to make some money. So he left TYT and went and immediately said, well, this is why I left the left. But he blamed it on the same things Tim Pool talks about, wokeism, the left being too radical, Antifa. It's the same grift. It's the same grift and it works. And again, that's all they're about. I remember the stories of Dave Rubin being incredibly lazy on set. Okay? Not doing research, as well as wanting 6 figures for doing an hour show a week. One 1-hour show a week. 6 figures. Now, as far as Tim Pool is concerned, once again, he wanted a lot of money, he wanted a lot of attention for doing very, very little. In fact, according to former colleagues, quote, "He was bringing nothing to the table. It felt like we were being conned." There was a deficit of ideas from Tim Pool, another former member of Vice's video team said. There was frustration about his inability to do a repeat hit like his coverage of Occupy Wall Street. he still had his fans in upper management, and the ability to remain in their good graces also pissed people off. Specifically, how seemingly oblivious the upper management and the execs were to the fact that Tim Pool was a total hack, as the former longtime editorial staffer put it. And by the way, that's just his work ethic. Here comes his antics. When Pool was given an early version of Google Glass, he would stroll around the office broadcasting his coworkers' activities live, which of course it's a newsroom where people are working. And they had to literally tell him, buzz off, dude. I'm busy. I'm working. I don't even give you consent to film me. Stop. He also would cosplay by putting on a flak jacket in the office. Vice provides reporters working in conflict zones with protective gear. Pool would wear a flak jacket in the office. Per multiple Vice sources, several employees thought it laughable and made him look like a poser. Others were a little angry because, of course, you had Vice reporters that were literally arrested in some of the places they had went to. And in their eyes, Pool treated the gear as nothing more than a cosplay outfit. At one point, he also brought in hacker-turned-Nazi troll Andrew Weave Arenheimer to the Vice newsroom and paraded him around. The former longtime editorial staffer felt Pool was showing off, as if to say, check it out, I'm hanging out with Weave. I'm so plugged into internet culture. And oh yeah, he also allegedly kidnapped a cat. For the cat story, I would definitely check out Hey It's Vadim on YouTube. So Hey It's Vadim. He did a great video about this, and he's talked about Tim Pool extensively. And so I would definitely check him out. He's formerly Creationist Cat, but he's done a lot of reporting on this, especially the attempting to kidnap a kitty. So, and that's after his most recent project had imploded. And so look, there's a lot more. This is an incredibly well-sourced, researched article. I could go on, but basically, y'all know this guy's an obvious grifter. Not just an obvious grifter, but also a danger to the discourse because of how little he knows. The worst thing about him, too, is the fact that he doesn't care to know. He doesn't care to know about the things that he's talking about. He's got his narrative. He's got the talking points. And those talking points are based on what's going to get him the most engagement and the most clicks. That's it. He's speaking to an audience not because he cares about the issue, but again, views, revenue, attention, and it shows in the debates that he's had, by the way, that he has no idea what he's talking about. I mean, and he doesn't care to learn as well. You know what his top 5 sources are for commentary? Daily Mail, which is basically a British like rag, a tabloid. Fox News, which of course lies to people. The New York Times, okay, I guess that's the enlightened centrist part. Oh, look, I sometimes use New York Times as a source. Andy No Tweets, and the New York Post, which is another Murdoch-owned outlet. So that was between June 25th and August 31st of 2020, and that was after somebody watched 300 Tim Pool videos and saw what he sourced. And he puts out a lot of content. And it's because, and you know what? I couldn't imagine putting out that much content. And it's because I actually have to do research. I guess it's pretty easy to put out videos if you don't have to do fuck all to actually get the information. So yeah, that's who Tim Pool is. He is a very wealthy, cowardly grifter who doesn't give a damn about what he's talking about or the country and doesn't understand the damage, either doesn't understand or doesn't care about the damage that he's actually done to discourse in this country. If you enjoyed this video, please give us a like and share with your friends. You can subscribe and help out the channel by becoming a patron. It's patreon.com/Jeff Waldorf, or you can become a channel member as well by hitting the join button below.